So the next question is how to more precisely measure fermentation process with whole cherries. This is a great question because it highlights the challenges that whole cherry processing gives us when we're trying to understand the activity of yeast and bacteria. Whole cherry is a big challenge. It's really difficult to know what's happening inside the tank because each cherry is its own bioreactor. It's a self-contained unit of metabolic activity. When you are doing a fermentation like that, each individual cherry is experiencing its own fermentation, its own different fermentation rate, because each cherry is starting with a different moisture content, depending on how ripe it is, a different sugar content, depending on how ripe it is, and different microbes kind of on the outside that are able to interact with said sugar and said moisture. So it's incredibly difficult to predict or to control those fermentations. So no, I don't know any way to do it. That's why I don't do those fermentations. That's not my preference. I will do them if I have to, if forced. We will do whole cherry fermentations, and there are ways that we can make that process a little bit more stable, but it's still a guess because measuring is really challenging because each individual cherry is a unit. Now, when I pulp the coffee, and I can have much more of a uniform mass because I'm taking off those tissue layers. So wash process pulped coffees have much more consistency within the batch because they're not individual bioreactor units. And it's easier for me to read the pH of that mass and get some information about what's happening in my fermentation. Whereas if you're getting the pH of a whole cherry fermentation, usually you don't have liquid, so you need some liquid to be able to measure pH. So my push isn't, hey, let's have more toys and more technology to better measure this. We can just process in an easier way with the caveat of having water and having the structures available to do that. So while I'm not aware of the tools and instruments to better measure what's going on in a whole cherry fermentation, what I do to work around that lack is I ferment whole cherries the way that I do my wash coffees, meaning that it's submerged and I'm also inoculating. I'm controlling the microbes that are present in the fermentation. So it's a two-pronged approach to be able to reduce the differences so that my lack of measurements is less important. I don't need to be hyper aware of what's happening in my fermentation from a measurements point of view, following my pH and my temperatures, because I'm compensating by submerged, inoculated fermentations. So one thing allows me to relax on the other thing. And that's why when you're not inoculating and you're not submerging, measurements become much more important, but we don't have those tools yet. So until we do, I use those methods that are available right now.